All right, we are back. Episode number 52. We are on our way. Welcome to the Adventures in Adversity podcast. So, for those of you who are new, this is 521
52.
52. Oh, I was like 52. Can you believe it? 52.
Graphic. Continue.
No, it's fine. This is a podcast about really just feature real people. I always say it's got to be a real person, real people, true stories. And essentially, my goal is to provide daily inspiration for anyone who is going through adversity. Because I feel like as a human being, adversity, from time to time, we might go through it once or twice.
True.
So with that, I am very, very excited to introduce my new friend, Benjamin Kintisch. Rhymes with mintish.
You got it. You said it right the first time. Well done.
Thank you.
Bree Wilson, we decided your name is cheese/volleyball.
Yes. Bree like the cheese, Wilson like the volleyball. You just did that. Thank you. So Ben, gosh, we got connected. I can't even through some digital media.
Probably Instagram. That's
email
how I find
Instagram.
most of my podcasts.
Yeah. And I am super stoked to talk to you because I think what you have created is not only amazingly creative, but so inspirational and necessary for life. And that is a musical called Life Review, the musical. Did I say it correctly?
Very, very close. Life Review, the Hospice Musical.
Hospice Musical.
It is a brand new musical comedy I've created inspired by my real life experiences as a hospice chaplain. Over 10 years ago, Bree, I was working as a beginner chaplain, doing my internship hours, visiting room to room. Part of the work a young chaplain does is to have these interview kind of conversations to help unearth stories and important themes from a person's life as they get ready to wind it down. The name of this technique is actually Life Review. So that beautiful phrase that named my play, not an original Ben Kintisch phrase. I borrowed that one. But I always found it beautiful as an idea, and in practice, it resulted in these wonderful conversations, sometimes with the person who was in the bed, and if they were no longer verbal, they're plus one, their spouse or adult child, whatever the case may be. So I heard amazing stories, and one evening I was driving home. I got on the cell with my wife. I said, honey, these amazing stories I'm hearing, I think they want to be songs. She said, okay, get writing. So that night, I opened up one of those black and white journal books, the kind they used to give us in elementary
composition
school. That's right, composition books. The speckled pattern.
Yes.
Yeah, so it turns out those are a favorite of songwriters everywhere. Later on, you can get fancy and get the nicer ones. Right. But these work very well. So I grabbed one of those books and I started scribbling down a song. It ended up being the first song in the show. I was thinking about a person imagining their life after their own death. I borrowed a phrase from my mother-in-law's poem. The title of her poem was Will It Still Snow? And with permission, I used the same phrase as a song title. And I just started writing this big song about, if, when you're a person living, you look forward to the seasons changing for those annual rituals. In the case of this character, she was from Western Massachusetts, and so she loved skiing with her family. Mm-hmm. So where some people fear the winter and winter storms, for her, snow is beautiful. Snow is time for family. Snow is skiing.
Yeah.
But then she's wondering, is it going to keep snowing when I'm gone? Is my family going to go on without me? Are the seasons going to keep turning over? So it's as small as the family concerns, but as big as will the world go on when my world stops. So that was the first song I wrote. It was a little rough when I shared it, but I did share it in a song sharing workshop where the room ended up in tears. I was told by the leader, this is something special you've created. You got to keep going. And then I kept going.
And you ended up writing, and now you perform the entire musical.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. We're now at 11 or 12 years in, depending on which version of my history I'm up to, but definitely over a decade. So I wrote the lyrics to 16 songs. I co-wrote them with two main musicians, composers Jason Spiewak and Michael Miller. Andy Basov of blessed memory wrote one song along with me and did some arranging. So did another friend named Miriam Cook. So it takes a village, four main musicians. Now, a fifth musician named Dennis Erickson is getting funding from a grant I got to do arrangements, taking the piano music and turning it into orchestral music. So we're growing it.
So it's
It's really
evolving.
beautiful. It is evolving. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and so that's been an interesting journey all this time. And when I connected with you, I had two big adversity stories in mind. One of them is specific to this play and
Yeah.
one predates it. So when you're
Yeah.
ready to ask that question, I'm
Oh,
ready with
yeah.
both. But
Totally. So, no, so this musical, so tell me a couple of sort of like getting the facts about it.
please.
I was looking at the website and you can go on your website and see the trailer. I loved it because it takes you on that journey of like, wow, that's really beautiful. And then laughing and then kind of up, down. And that's like what life is. Right. And like one of the people in the interviews in the trailer was saying, death is this topic that everyone's like, hey, why you gotta bringing it down, and it's like it's gonna happen, right? So why not, like, there's beauty in finding the humor and like all the emotions around it, and we all have to go through it, whether with somebody or we will ourselves, right?
Well, that's true. In fact, your statement of fact, we're all going to go through it, as in we're all going to face our own mortality, is a central premise of the work. In fact, our opening number is called Spoiler Alert, parentheses, everybody dies in the end. So
I
it's a comedy number. It goes on for a really long time. It was originally written as an ensemble number, but
Yeah.
I bring it up now because the big work has been reconfigured as a smaller one-man work, which is a COVID pivot. We can come back to the how of
Yeah.
that later if you want.
Yeah.
But when I perform it by myself, I sing all 8 songs, including this doozy of an opening number that goes on forever. Most songs are like 2 verses and a bridge. This one has 3 or 4 verses and a bridge and a bonus, it just goes on and on.
Yeah.
And it's in the key of Z, so like very high notes.
Wow. Okay. So that one moment in the car driving home, and then your wife being like, let's
So she
go.
said get writing, and the thing is there were so many stories percolating already before I made the project a thing,
Yeah.
because look, I had already been a very novice songwriter.
I was going to
In a
say,
sense, I was, once you decide in your heart that you're a songwriter or a poet or a story writer, you start gathering little pieces of language or little pieces of story. More so if you're like in a program or taking a class and
sure.
a teacher's giving you tasks. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you, as a songwriter, in conversation, if I hear someone say something interesting, I say that's a song title. And then I will sometimes literally take out my phone and do a voice memo, song title.
Because it's a moment of inspiration, right? It
That's
comes.
it. And I'll write the 2 or 3 words down. More importantly, if it's a title or an idea related to a project that's currently percolating, like I'm
Yep.
working on one main musical, but a couple of others on the back burner. So that's 3 different projects where if I have an idea, I want to make sure I get it
You're
down, right?
yep. Yep.
Grabbing them before they fly away. I have some of those kind of techniques and instincts that I've cultivated because I've completed one entire project. A lot of these things I didn't know how to do the first time because I was a
Yeah.
novice
Yeah.
making my way. Now I'm a grizzled veteran,
Yeah.
with the Obama gray in my beard, indicating the stress in making a musical or just being a person these days.
Hey, there's some adventures and adversity in life, and I
Yes.
got some gray, I got to get a little touch up.
Yes, well hidden and
Thank you.
just the right color.
So talk to me about now. You said you were, because you came at this as a budding songwriter with some musical background and as a chaplain.
That's right. I was in my first year of chaplaincy training. So for those
Okay.
of you who don't know,
Yes.
listeners, a chaplain is a faith professional who is trained in therapeutic and, let's say, therapy adjacent skills
Amazing.
to be of assistance to people in their time of need. Specifically, the term we use in chaplaincy is spiritual distress. Now, it
Oh,
doesn't mean like I'm on my sick bed and I'm having a crisis regarding Jesus. That's like a certain kind
sure.
of spiritual distress, but sometimes it's just someone who's in their sick bed dying and
And
they're lonely and you're the chaplain doing rounds, and you knock on the door and you say, I'm a chaplain, would you like a visit? And you say, sure. I mean, there's an old expression, there's no atheists in a foxhole, meaning in times of crisis, very few people stay true to a lack of faith, probably because it feels hopeful to believe in something beyond your present bleak circumstances. Thus, no atheists in a foxhole. So it's not totally true. I've done, I did 4 years of training, 2 of which were hospice, 2 of which were elder care. So people in varying degrees of with itness, ability to communicate, verbalize, different degrees of illness and need. But one commonality is people like company. Those who consider themselves of faith, they enjoy the experience of a prayer at the end of a visit.
Yep.
I tended to travel with a guitar. You see, I've got a guitar in the background. So
Amazing.
that one I had in a backpack gig bag. And depending on the person and the mood, sometimes I would offer a song. That was often useful for people who were dealing with cognitive decline. And therefore, the sort of interpersonal conversation might not be available anymore. But
Sure.
amazingly, a song can sometimes unlock a little bit of a verbal response. Differently, a guitar and a song could be used to soothe someone who is in bed and not verbal. Sometimes their plus one could just be sitting bedside sad because mom or dad are dying, and I could be strumming or playing a hymn, that kind of thing. I developed sort of a repertoire of what I called them soothing songs / lullabies, and they're all kind of grouped together because they all worked in hospice. Of course, I knew the up-tempo, peppy stuff from my time as a school teacher and a camp counselor and all that, but it's a different subset of music because it had a kind of a soothing aspect for people.
Exactly.
So that's a little bit about what a chaplain is, and then with a little bit of extra musical
Wow.
entertainment added to the mix. So that's what a chaplain is all about, providing that kind of therapeutic, loving help, but with that religious bent. So I trained as a chaplain for real in real life.
Amazing.
When I was a young cantor, that's a Jewish music minister working in a synagogue. I noticed that there were a lot of older people in my community, so I had a lot of funerals to work, a lot of bereavement house calls, and certainly a lot of hospital, nursing home, rehab home visits.
Yeah.
So I liked visiting with those people, but I also sensed that it was a particular skill set I didn't have that was super strong. So that was the beginning of my chaplaincy journey. It was about improving skills so I could better serve my community. That's how I first became a chaplain. And it was then in that first year of chaplaincy that happened to occur at a residential hospice where I was meeting these people, and the stories came bubbling up and turned into song.
But how cool is it that you got to you literally created this at the beginning to kind of carry you through your life as a chaplain, right? Like the musical is the soundtrack to in a way, right? Like
in a certain way,
not everything.
Sometimes my interviewers are disappointed to find out I'm no longer working as a chaplain. I have a day job as
I'm
a
not
music
disappointed.
teacher. Thank you. But I do say I continue to play a chaplain on stage, and I do so rather well. I look just like the main character who I cast myself as. But you are correct that writing this project was a part of my chaplaincy journey. And without oversharing, because it's not really pertinent to today's interview. Sure. Actually, no, it is because of your title name. The first year, I didn't make this connection before today, so let's jump right into it. The first year of my chaplaincy training, you should know just a technical term. It's called Clinical Pastoral Education, or CPE for short. It's considered a graduate level class. You need to have completed undergrad and then have some recommendations from faith professionals, like you've been a volunteer, or in my case, you've completed seminary. So we had some people who were full clergy. We had one guy who was a deacon, a highly trained layperson in a Catholic church. Interesting mix, very small class. I think we had 4 students and 1 teacher, but typically CPE maxes out at 6. Because the work is so intense. And over the course of one school year, you do approximately, I want to say it was 250 or 300 hours of supervised visits. So you have to schedule your professional year to include that number of hours shifts in your work week.
Yeah.
And then additionally an evening class, which is like graduate level reading and writing, plus discussions and debriefs about some challenging visits and so forth.
Okay.
I loved this work, Bree. It was difficult, but
Yeah.
I also found it very deep and helpful in a way that seminary training honestly wasn't, because seminary was 5 years in New York City, 1 in Jerusalem, 4 in Manhattan, but not with practicum style stuff like you'd get, say, in med school.
Yeah.
So CPE felt the first time I was doing the work of visits and then writing it up, discussing it with my teacher, discussing it with my classmates, and getting better.
Okay. Yeah.
Through intensive reflection. This, by the way, this process is similar to what a lot of social workers and therapists do, doing the so-called verbatim, where you remember what you did, write it up, and then talk about it.
So it's these core skills, right? In all these different fields of like where you're interacting and counseling.
That's right. And the core skill in this case being super powered listening and hyper focused responses.
I need that class.
Yeah, well, if you're involved in a faith community in some sort of meaningful way, you and I could talk about what it means to be a chaplain offline, perhaps. I'd be happy to do that call, because I think there's a big and growing need for chaplains and people adjacent to chaplaincy because of the baby boomers. Now they're calling it the gray wave, kind of crashing over the elder care facilities everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of those places, they hire a chaplain. And then just in terms of the world of nonprofits, there's chaplains are all over the place. They're in nursing homes and hospices and rehab centers. They're in hospitals. They're in professional sports. They're sometimes involved with corporations. They'll have a chaplain.
It's like calming. And again, I've never talked one-on-one with a chaplain other than now. And my perception of a chaplain is like calming force, calming presence. There's some like,
that's the right idea. Well, hopefully, yes. In fact, I'll introduce one of my favorite Hebrew terms that's fun to say. It's called tzimtzum. Try saying it. Tzimtzum.
Tzimtzum.
Oh, that was really good. So it's Hebrew, and it means the withdrawal of oneself or making oneself smaller. There's a famous legend, a rabbinic legend, that to create the world, God originally occupied all of the universe, and then God had to make God's self smaller to make space for creation. So God, in all of God's omnipotence, had to make God's self smaller to make space for God's creation. Now, that's kind of crazy, deep, metaphysical to think about, but for ourselves as clergy people, especially in the chaplaincy world, we have to go against all of our normal clergy instincts in order to be effective chaplains. In fact, I use this as a plot point in my play, and I'll come back to that in a second. But basically, you think about who is a good pastor, priest, rabbi, cantor. It's someone who sermonizes well, who sings well if they're a music minister, and who's very charismatic. People love them, right? And if you're missing the onstage performance as well as the ability to work a crowd, you really can't do the pulpit work. You got to do both.
Yeah.
I was great at the singing part, a little bit iffy on the working the lunch afterwards because of my old like social anxieties and whatnot. And it ended up not being the right career for me, which is a shame because I had some other good skills, but pulpit cantor, at least at the time I first tried, was not the right match. I'm a very good music teacher, so I'm okay. But it's worth noting that the clergy business and certainly the chaplain business, it requires different facets of different personalities. So the chaplain takes that loving, warm part that we want from our clergy, but it puts aside the ego in a major way that is challenging for a
Okay.
lot of regular clergy. The Tzimtzum, right? The withdrawal of oneself.
Oh.
You step into the room and you say, may I have a visit? And then you take a chair and you move it close to the bed. You don't do any visits standing unless the person you're visiting is standing up. Do you want to guess why, Bree?
Because it's comfort, right? Is it like soothing? Like it's when someone's standing.
So yes, comfort, yes, soothing, but think about the levels. If I'm standing up and you're in bed,
it's like the like authoritative kind
that's
of.
right. There's a power dynamic
Yeah,
implied.
yeah,
Have
yeah.
you ever been in a bed for whatever reason in a hospital?
Having kids.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
God
that's
bless.
about it. Yeah.
But you remember in that moment of like the height of your womanly superpowers, you're about to birth a child. You're also in a bed in the most vulnerable position of your life. And all these people, many of whom are men, are like, hello, let me look at your privates.
Yeah, I'm like,
Like,
hey.
nice to meet you.
No, you're
Where's
very
the dinner?
You're a
You're very
sitting duck.
vulnerable. And if and when anyone got down low next to you, you probably noticed it and appreciated it. I bet you the nurses or the midwives got down low to make
Yes.
eye contact. A lot of doctors don't. They stay up. So
Mhm.
one of the techniques, I mean, that's a very specific, concrete technique that a chaplain learns is to lower themselves. I happen to have a bad back, so I would
Yeah.
always, in every facility, locate a bridge chair, as
Uh-huh.
in a folding aluminum chair. And then when I did my rounds, I would literally travel with it.
Just take it
Because
and
in a
sit
lot of
down.
hospitals, the only chair in the room weighs about 400 pounds.
Smart.
It's sort of like an indestructible easy chair. Can you picture it?
Yes, yes, yes.
Terrible for visiting bedside.
But yeah, you knew it's the body language and like how
Body
you
language is important, right?
everything, right? And like
Yeah,
how
so you want to be close, you want to be quiet, you want to listen. In the pre-COVID era, there was a lot more gentle touch with permission. May I hold your hand?
Oh,
May I
sure.
stroke your hair?
Yeah.
There's probably less of that now, but if it happens, always with permission. But it's one part of, I mentioned a plot point. So at the beginning of the play, our hero, again, he looks like me. His name is Rabbi David, and he is trying to find his way as the new chaplain. He makes a terrible blunder when visiting a family. The young man in 20 something is dying of cancer. So
Okay.
it's the middle-aged mother who is a wreck, grieving for her dying son. The young rabbi chaplain tries to be clever and invokes the story of Job. Do you know Job,
I know
Bree?
Job. It's one of my favorite books.
It's a good book, but it is
It's
well known
He goes
as
through a rough
problematic,
time. He goes through a rough
difficult.
time. Really tough
Yes.
time.
And some, there is a joke that I include in the play where after he talks about Job and he says, Job was a man of faith and his kids all died. And as soon as he says it, you can see like he wants to dial it back. And the mother is furious. She's like, get out of here. You think that's okay? Don't come back. And he's in the hallway and he's like, what have I done? They said in chaplaincy training, don't ever talk about Job. And so that joke actually sometimes gets a laugh from the crowd, but only if you're like a Bible scholar.
No, yeah.
And you understand Job is thorny as heck because it is a man of great faith who suffers terribly because God and the devil is having a wager. It's craziness.
Yes.
And you don't want to bring that up to a real life woman with a real life dying child. I can tell you. Humor can be used in chaplaincy, but with great caution.
That's what I was, yeah.
Yes, that is his low point early in the play.
Okay.
And then he needs to recover. And the lesson learned, aside from don't talk about Job, is basically don't be too clever. Your job as chaplain is not to be the scholar in residence for people in need, not the rabbi sermonizing or the priest, pastor sermonizing. You're there to be quiet, to step in the room and then step back, to sit on the chair, make eye contact, hold hands with permission, and then say something like, what's going on? You're
creating a space for you're not coming in. That's it's a very, I feel like it takes a very special person to do that, like to be able to be, let's say you're good at it and then to be emotionally again, I know we could talk for years about that whole journey, but how did you, if someone listening right now, is going through something and they're like, or maybe they're trying to comfort someone who's going through something long term. How do you like, I had asked a therapist friend of mine who was my last guest, how do you actually know if you're creating a space that's like, how do you, it's like the sitting down, it's the quiet, right?
Are you asking sort of chaplain 101 for someone who wants to help a friend? Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah, I'm basically saying,
Okay.
how do we be our
So
friends'
so
chaplains,
sure.
right?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the question, and I will immediately sidestep it by saying
Okay.
your most loving role when your friend is in distress is to be a good friend and try to avoid confusing your roles. So for me, because I'm trained as a chaplain, and I've
Mm,
had this conversation with my wife and my own therapist, I have to be careful not to try to be chaplain and definitely not social worker to my aging parents, right?
mm, yeah.
Therapists need to make sure they're in therapy and that their loved ones have their own therapist who are not them, right?
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
so in my family, I don't provide spiritual care. I don't I don't do therapist style open-ended questions. So, how does that feel? Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
my
they
daughter would say that's cringy and she has her own therapist, right? Like she doesn't
right,
need
right.
daddy.
That's a
So,
great
that's
point.
and I think
That's a great point.
I mention that because those of us who are not trained in the therapeutic arts, if we
Yeah,
are not social workers or therapists or chaplains, etc., but we're just regular people wanting to help, we
yeah.
sometimes overestimate our therapeutic skill by virtue of our interest in being helpful.
Mm,
I really want to help, therefore I'm going to be effective at helping. No, that's not correct. You just really want to help. So here are two separate things you can do to be most of assistance. One, if your person's in crisis, lovingly guide them, holding their hand, pushing, pulling, kicking, and screaming to get
yeah.
the professional help they need.
Mm,
So, if they are literally in some sort of spiritual crisis, like the kind where chaplain is in mind,
yeah.
does your loved one belong to a faith community? If they go to a church, synagogue, mosque, or other place of worship, you might remind them your faith leader might be a good person to talk to, especially if they're like therapy averse. That's the nice thing about
Got it.
chaplains. For people who are scared of therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, sometimes they're more comfortable with a faith professional. So
Yeah.
chaplains can be like, it's not sneaky, but like a different way to get people the help that they need. But in the same way that if you're friends with a drunk, or you used to be just like, you used to always go drinking on the weekend and then you notice your friends drinking devolved, at a certain point there may be a challenging conversation, but it's not actually your job to help your friend on the sobriety path. It
Yeah.
might be just to say, hey, yeah, maybe it's time to talk to someone, and then it's up to them
It's to guide them. It's
to
like a
guide them to a
barometer.
better path,
Yeah.
knowing that they probably won't listen to you and it's risky. Now, that said,
Mm,
the if someone comes to you asking for a specific kind of help, I recommend you lovingly offer a little help, but not a lot of help, and then see if they're ready to actually take it or listen. So, if someone were to come to me knowing, oh, Ben, you're trained as a chaplain, and they kind of implicitly ask for some kind of chaplain-y type help, I would listen a little bit and think, what is their presenting problem? Like, for instance, if someone is super religious and then their loved one is dying, that can cause a crisis because it's like, God has forgotten me. So I might say, like, you seem really lost right now. Where do you usually go to find your way? Or where do you
mm.
find comfort? That's probably going to be helpful now.
It's a great question to ask somebody.
Yeah, what I mean, a less metaphysical way is like
Yeah.
what usually works to make you feel better. That's like
Yeah.
a teacher technique, like the kid is upset, and to try to find the person, like, do they have self-soothing techniques?
Yeah.
A lot of us grown-ups know how to self-medicate with like softer hard drugs or
Yeah.
alcohol, tobacco, and so forth. And then there's like the non-pharmaceutical version of same: exercise, meditation, breathing,
Sure.
whatnot. And then I guess there's prescription pharmaceuticals that are
Oh, yeah.
somewhere in that judgment spectrum of what's
Yeah.
okay and not. I
Yes.
would say judgment free zone coming from this guy, because I use just about everything. But I
Hey.
would say this: as long as you're safe and you're not hurting anyone. Yes, do what you need to get through what you're going through, your adversity, and to take care of yourself and your loved ones. I mean, the essence of your question is sort of like, well, if a chaplain isn't available, what can I do for my friend? And I think the number one thing is, if they need a chaplain, help your friend find a chaplain. If your friend needs a therapist, help them find a therapist. Because oftentimes, here, I'm going to bring up a pain point for me. I will just use the initial.
Okay.
A dear friend of mine has for years struggled with mental health stuff. And we have a different kind of friendship because we've made some art together.
Oh, yeah.
And so as music makers, we're not just like buddies on the kickball team or whatever. And we also didn't come of age like when we were both 20. But he's going through some stuff right now that I know is quite intense. And he revealed to me recently that in the past year since I'd seen him, the intensity of his struggle were such that he was hospitalized for a little bit. Like the kind of stuff that like serious stuff, right? And I bring this up because that's a great example of a friendship where I get on the phone with him and I say to myself, not his chaplain, not his therapist, not his chaplain, not his therapist. Because my most needy friend, the one who was hospitalized for his struggles, he just needs a friend. He may or may not currently be accessing the many services that have been provided to him in the past. I know for a fact he has a team in place, a care team.
Sure, care team. Yep.
Right? Because once you're hospitalized, you're on people's radar. Whether he's taking his meds, doing his thing, like that's between him and his meds and his loved ones at home. That's beyond my sphere of influence. And maybe that's the other piece of advice I want to say here before coming back to whatever else is on your mind.
Yeah.
When you have a loved one in distress, and you can hear from the upset in my story, it is super upsetting. And to keep yourself sane and healthy, you may need to remind yourself again and again and again, where does my influence begin and end? You said you're a mother. Are your children still at home? Are they grown?
Are 8 and 10 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell
they're
them
long
they're
gone
doing
out of
well.
that. No, I'm kidding. They're still at home. Yeah.
Yes, they've been wage earners for 4 years.
They're very independent.
I love it. So you still have them in close proximity, and you get to worry about them.
Yeah.
Mine is 14, so she's getting new kinds of independence in all sorts of ways. Yes, there's preening, and yes, there's love, and all of it. And I say, good luck, have fun, be safe, and call me if you need a ride. That's basically it.
Or a song, or a musical about your life.
Yeah. But like, with our own children, we learn where the influence begins and how quickly they establish autonomy, including as a young baby.
Yeah.
Like that old aphorism about you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. It's the same with like babies and a boob, or babies and solid food.
You're
like for millions of years they've been doing this, and we still need a consultant to help us in many cases. And I'm not equipped with that gear, but like as the dad who did the bottle and the wet food, the dry food, it was amazing. Sometimes I'm like, you don't like this? Look, Daddy likes apricot and peas puree. This is good stuff.
But it's a great point. It's a great point.
They may or may not take the food we give them, or to come back to your what do you do with friends and help, they may or may not accept our suggestion about getting a therapist, our generic tips about wellness. Are you getting sleep? Are you getting water? Let me remind people, though, having been close to people in great grief and distress, specific offers of help are always better than asking them to tell you what to do. So if you have a bereaved friend or loved one, someone whose person just died, instead of saying, what can I do? Show up with some food, or buy them $100 gift certificate to their favorite restaurant and drop that off to the house, because they'll get tired of the casseroles after a week or two. I don't know what it is with people in casseroles, but they're not actually appetizing multiple nights in a row.
Yeah.
Especially the same one. More lasagna. Why, God, why?
Here.
Again, baked with love. And but the joking aside, like, people need all different kinds of things. If you're comfortable with a lawnmower, you might say, hey, I'll take care of lawn care for the next 3 months. You don't even have to worry about
Amazing.
it.
Like specific, that just, they don't have the capacity or energy to think
Yeah,
about what
or
they
you
need.
like doing laundry more than your typical person. Say, I'm happy to do laundry for you once a week.
Nice.
Me and my teens will come over and do laundry on the weekend for you. That's a great way to help someone
It's
in
really
crisis.
sweet.
And that might be someone with a recent death in the family, someone with a hospitalized loved one, post criminal trauma,
Yeah.
post traffic accident or traffic
Yeah.
crash, bike crash, anything like that. When everything seems upside down, go in and be specific. The other thing, remember, when they are diminished and they're victim, they are not well equipped to be the best friend. So don't expect them to be the best friend. Give them grace and give them patience. You can't hold grudges against people. And that includes someone who just had their husband leave them, or,
Yeah.
divorce is also a trauma and a grief event.
Yeah.
Because my show is about death and dying, it includes a lot of grief stuff. So I talk about grief. And I remind people that for some people, you can have a grief event that is traumatizing or acts like trauma in your body and in your heart and in your mind. That can include a divorce. It can include the loss of a beloved job. It can include the loss of a beloved home or a move. That could, or,
Mm.
leaving a neighborhood can be a trauma, especially for kids, but for grown-ups too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of hurt around us. And it also means that when our friends or loved ones, as you were asking, are reaching out, what can we do? So the number one thing is acknowledge their hurt. Don't compare it. Say, thank you so much for trusting me with your hurt, or thank you so much for sharing this. I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that. If you're comfortable restating it, you could just say something like, it sounds like you're going through a lot, or like,
Yeah.
that is terrible.
Validating them. Yeah.
Validating them in a non-clinical way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want to diagnose a psychological thing. Sounds like you're going through clinical grief or anticipatory grief. Like, they don't want that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a therapist, because then you're slipping into that role you don't want to be.
Yeah.
But being quiet, I mean, that whole thing of team tsum, of being in the room and then stepping back, you can practice that as a layperson or a quote regular person. If you're
Yeah.
going to a bereavement call, of whatever faith tradition, a lot of times the person is sick of talking about the dead person.
They just want to hang out.
So you could just say, hey, I'm here for you. Is it okay if I sit next to you?
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can also hook a brother or sister up by attending to their bodily functions. Like, if you're close, be like, hey, have you used the restroom in the last couple of hours? Do you want a bathroom buddy? I'll go with you. And if you need to cry and I can help you fix your mascara, if it's someone who wears mascara, or a lot of times people who are grieving, they forget to eat. So you can say, there's a nice spread out there. Have you had any food today? I always do this. I mean, I'm also a school teacher.
But
And I always say to my colleagues, if I see they're stressed, I say, did you have breakfast or lunch?
it's so accurate. And it's very, when someone asks, have you eaten? It's very it feels very nurturing. I'm like, oh, you want to make sure I've eaten.
Yeah.
It's so nice. It's just nice.
I think that's very elementary school teacher. It's daddy.
Yeah.
In a certain sense, in the Jewish tradition, they don't call the clergy father. That's more a priest thing, right? But in many ways, clergy people are like mother, father, grandpa, grandma roles to their flock.
Yeah. Yes.
So we try to provide comfort, but we also, to kind of wind down this little conversation, as lovely as it is, I think we are all able to provide comfort to one another more than we realize. And I think that's a nice lesson for your podcast, because it is true that in times of acute adversity, what I might call trauma making events or emergencies or disasters, death, dying, etc. Yes, there are the people with the official coats or jackets, the white coat doctors or the high vis doctors of EMT, EMS, police, right? And in a certain sense, the clergy, I used to put on my yarmulke as part of my my Jewish clergy person gear, and then of course the dangly badge, visitor clergy. It goes with it. But, we all suit up as professionals. I think us regular people, I'm going to call us lay people now that I'm not currently working as clergy, we are able to be loving presences for each other in ways that are not clinical, but are super important in different ways. And it involves, the biggest one is showing up. I often tell people that an implicit message of my musical is about visiting so that you can hear these stories, because the stories give life to connection and so forth. I remind people that our hero, yes, he's a chaplain. In a sense, he's different from us, because most random Americans are not chaplains statistically. I know it's not a huge job. But we all have people.
Oh, yeah.
We all have people who end up older and therefore are in nursing homes, rehab centers, even 55 plus communities.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
That are active living. Guess what? Active living, they still want the adult children and the grandkids to come visit.
Yes.
You don't have to be sick or dying to want those visits. Yes. So I remind people, and every chance I have a conversation like this, Bree, visit your people.
Yeah.
And then if you're nervous about it, if you're not sure what to say, you can use this fabulous device in your pocket, the tech, to mediate the awkwardness. Use your photo app to give a little slideshow. Everyone loves photos.
Yeah. Break the
And
ice.
if you're doing a multi-generational thing, like if you and I are in the sandwich generation with older living parents and younger children we take care of. So when it gets awkward, I say to my daughter, hey, go sit next to grandpa and show him some photos on your phone and just tell him what you're showing. And she'll do that for
She'll be like
20 minutes easy.
Eh.
Yeah. No, if anything, I'm like, honey, that's really good. Just slow down a little bit. You get excited and you go fast. And of course, with a younger child, it's a different kind of interaction. It might be like, grandpa, read me a children's book. And so part of the visit that parents we facilitate is maybe we go to the local library to shop for a few cute books that we're going to bring to our older people when we visit them at the place.
Right.
If we are music making people, we can talk about doing a sing-along with our instruments or with our recordings. Yeah. If we are art making kids or grown-ups, we can make art with our older people. Meaning that doing the kinds of activities that old people facilities run for their elders.
Yeah.
We can do that unofficially or join into the official visits. If we're nervous about it, grandpa, it's bingo time. Let's go together. He'll love it, or grandma will love it. So those are my free tips for visiting. But again, it's all about showing up. You don't have to do the professional work of the therapists.
You shouldn't.
It's not your job. Yeah.
You're not going to be. That's a really important, because you can't take on, you can, as a friend, you're a friend. You're
yeah. And as a loved one, you're a loved one.
Yeah. Question for you.
Yes, please.
And you know me, I'm kind of all over the place. We have talked about your musical. Everyone's like, yeah, Brie, we know you're, we've talked about the musical, and now you're a music teacher.
I am.
Middle school music teacher, right?
I teach K4 music, and then I'm also coordinator for lessons for the entire K8 school. So I hire and manage music education majors from nearby University of Maryland. I train them and how to teach good group lessons. Sweet. Hopefully I can keep them on for several years as I work with them.
And so, and all of this sort of, you were a chaplain, you wrote this musical, which you're still performing, right? As yourself and in like a ensemble, right?
Right. So I'm trying to stand up the ensemble piece in partnership with a theater. So if, dear listener, you're involved with a theater and you're curious about Life Review, the Hospice Musical, you're going to visit my website, lifereviewmusical.com, and learn more. There's a contact us form. You can also reach me on Instagram at Life Review Musical. I answer all the DMs I get. So hit me up if you're curious. Now, we are doing the one-man show. I've done it at fringe festivals. I've done it at house shows inside people's homes. I've performed it at big synagogue community shows. Yeah. I got a grant from Maryland State Arts Council in this past year that paid for a couple of shows, hired some musicians.
So cool.
We're doing some great stuff. In the new year, I hope to get another grant and get more of the music orchestrated to perform with musicians again. I'm hoping to do more synagogue appearances around the country. And if I get a bigger grant, maybe even record an album I'd love to do that to share the music with more people.
Ooh.
So if you're listening, guys, and you're curious, the one-man show is the most nimble. I'm able to come to your church, synagogue, mosque community. I've done convention appearances. I
Yeah.
can do trainings where I do the show, and then we do group discussions
cool.
afterwards to discuss the themes. And then I'm also, a talented teacher. So I can do this in like a college setting and then work with young playwrights and aspiring songwriters to work on their craft.
The whole
So there's a lot of
process.
different things to do. Yeah. But the biggest dream for sure is to bring this thing to Broadway. And if you want to bring this really beautiful and engaging show to your local theater, hit me up. We'll see what we can work out. But the one-man show, super nimble. I will travel to you or perform through this white dot in your computer. I will try not to do too many comic lean-ins. I put a black curtain on that back wall. I've performed over a dozen times from this room. And I still make him cry and laugh.
I believe it. I believe it. Okay, well, all of that stuff is going to be in the show notes, obviously. But I'm not totally done with you yet, if you have a second.
Bree, I'm happy to go over. I have no hard stop. And obviously, you edit for time and clarity when you like.
Totally. No, and I...
Keep asking questions, please.
I will, because this is super cool. And I want to just give you an opportunity. I know, like, obviously, this show, we have so many different types of guests. And I always say, actually, everyone has such different stories. Some people have this like one big adversity story. Some people just adversity is sort of their daily, it just depends on your life. Coming into this interview, I knew we were going to talk about this amazing musical that I'm going to come see on Broadway when it's on Broadway. Are there any other sort of adventures in adversity that you would kind of like to share with my audience? And that's all I want to ask you. If there's anything else that you would like
I've got two. There's one that's pre-play and one related to the play. So the first one happened when I was a college kid at the height of my youthful foolishness. I was known as someone who could climb from the first floor window, sort of do a half leap up to the second window, pull himself up, and then jimmy the window for a kid who was like locked out of save them $50 and not having to call the campus police. So this is something I did at least a dozen times. One day I was summoned to get to the third floor. I couldn't climb from down below, so I used ropes from up above. The ropes I used did not support my weight. I fell a great distance. I was later told a fatal distance, over 30 feet. I landed on both feet because I was a former roofer, so I knew how to fall in a way that saved my life. Fractured one ankle and also landed on my bottom, so that impact went up my spine, and one of my vertebrae, instead of like this, it's like a trapezoid now. So a fractured vertebra as well. I was not paralyzed, amazingly, but a pretty major back trauma. That happened with like 1 year left to go in college, when everything was going awesome, and that terrible injury happened, and it was awful. Unbelievable pain in the months that followed. Chose to stay in college, used a manual wheelchair to kind of push myself around campus. And we could do a whole long conversation about it. But briefly, that aphorism from To Kill a Mockingbird that Atticus Finch teaches, to understand a man, you have to walk a mile in his shoes. So I spent 2 months and change living as a disabled person and also living with spectacularly awful pain related to injury. So that was life-changing. I befriended a young man who was also disabled, happened to have muscular dystrophy. So like I met him in the dining hall. I was like, hey, you're in a wheelchair. He's like, I know. And I found that funny. And then like we became friends.
He's like, no shit.
Exactly. So we compared notes about how it was a pain in the ass on a fancy old New England college campus. Some buildings have good accessibility and some are grandfathered in inaccessible. And so I discovered that firsthand. And so ever since then, I've always had an awareness about accessibility issues that an able-bodied person doesn't have. I pay attention to things like curb cuts, and when there's elevator access or ramp access, is it around the front and the side, or is it around the back where the garbage is? Because my friend Pete and I had to enter the back of the building near where the garbage was, which was really humiliating. And after he graduated, his family, which had a lot of money, helped to pay for they call it universal design entrance, basically a ramp up front that greets the public properly. Anyway, but it shouldn't be up to disabled rich people to make the world accessible. So my friend is no longer alive. His name was Pete. So rest in peace, peace to my friend Pete. And, he also kind of taught me through that adversity. This is maybe a little bit of the moral of many Hollywood movies involving disabled people or people with disabilities, but it's the people first idea. Like, he and I came together as buddies because we were both college kids in wheelchairs, but our friendship was sustained by the adventures that we shared and our commonalities. So I think that's worth remembering, because sometimes in our adversities, we find like, oh, I had cancer, you did too. We will share that story, and that will be a source of bonding. And that can be special.
Sure.
And it's also important to remember all of the things other than your shared miseries or your shared adversities that bring you together.
Yes.
So that's one thought about that. Now, pivoting to the life review thing, that adventure began over 10 years ago. And it was going well, slow and steady, collaborating, co-writing, presenting. And if you want to learn more, we have quite a bit of a history on that website, lifereviewmusical.com. So it so happened that our biggest workshop, the one that you actually see some footage of with our nice video that's on that website, the footage that was taken was from the live show that happened January 20... before everything shut down. So COVID came crashing through March of 2020. So I believe it was like January 15th, January 20th, something like that. We had standing room only. It was very exciting. People cheered. And in my heart of hearts, I was like, my dream is taking off. This is going. I love your excited face.
I know.
That
I was like,
how I
what
felt.
happens next?
What was happening next? What was happening next? Am I going to book here? Am I going to book there? Everything seemed to be popping off. Now, of course, what happened, unbeknownst to me, this virus was quietly taking over in China and then going to be spreading around the world. So when live theater shut down, projects like mine were certainly on ice right away. And so that was devastating to me. I was so excited. I was so motivated. I thought this thing was going to it was going to take off, and then boom. So I ended up connecting, I went through some very difficult times, a little bit of depression. I worked with a wonderful creative coach. Let me give her a shout out. Her name is Alex Paulding. She runs a business called The Hustling Creative. If you're a creative person and you need some business help, chef's kiss. She's the best. So she worked with me at a time that I was dealing with my own COVID heartbreak, and she had an off-Broadway contract that she was sitting on for an April 1 start. So that show never happened. My show never took off, and we were sad together. And what she told me is, you can put this thing in a drawer and leave it there, or you can figure out a way to pivot. So that was how the big show became a one-man show. That was the pivot, to take the full-length show that required an ensemble and reconfigure it as a one-man show. Basically, I said, all right, I have a strong opening number and I have a good closing number. That's 2 of 8. Okay. So I need to pick my 6 strongest songs, and probably not the ensemble numbers unless it's really good and it's worth redoing. Okay. And then I was like, okay, so the theme, that one. And then it became very clear which songs were must keeps, kind of tent poles musically and thematically. And then, because part of the conceit of the play is the stories of the individuals come to life. I say it's like Fiddler on the Roof meets a chorus line. So chorus line, people say their stories, their monologues in musical form. Right? Like, I Can Do That, or at the ballet. Fiddler on the Roof, because there's this dialectic talking up with the heavens or the stage lights above the proscenium, that conversation with God. Like, God, I believe in you, but what's happening down here on earth? That's trouble that Tevye has throughout the play. He has different troubles. It's mostly about his daughters,
Yeah.
daughters. But it's really the conflict between tradition and modernity. I did a whole master's thesis about this, so don't get me started.
Hey.
But suffice to say that there's some real talk between him and the God he believes in, because the world he believes in is betraying him, right?
Yes.
That is the very similar faith problem of most believing people, chaplain included, who work in a hospice or arrive in the hospice as a patient or arrive in the hospice as a +1. If you, Bree, believe that your faith in God buys you a pain-free existence, a life until old age without injury or illness, or a life until old age without injury or illness for all of your favorite loved ones, you have a theological crisis coming. The first time that fallacy is proven, right? Yeah. And the problem that so many faith traditions give us is we teach our little boys and girls, our little children, if you're good, and you come to church and you say the prayers, Santa Claus will bring you the presents, right? Have we ever gotten more literal than that? And that's also all kinds of problematic materialistic nonsense for your December episode, right? But if you believe that if you're good and you're faithful that grandma will never die, you've got another thing coming to you. There's no such thing as people on earth that live forever. Now, some of us believe in life after death that goes on forever and a day, and that's a different podcast as well.
You're coming back to that one.
Yeah, no, and I'm happy to.
Please.
But the truth is, the fundamental faith crisis that so many people have in hospice or hospital is that belief that because there's a famous Jewish book that was a bestseller for all faith traditions called When Bad Things Happen to Good People.
Yes, I know that book.
It's written by Rabbi Kushner.
Yes.
And he wrote this after his elementary age son died of cancer. Yep. Horrible tragedy. We would not wish it upon our worst enemies, right? Childhood cancer death. And here was a pious man who believed all this stuff and everything went wrong. So my fictional character, Rabbi David, he's a rabbi. He wants to be a chaplain. He wants to help the people in hospice. But we discover both of his parents are dead. Why? No reason. Because parents die. That's why. Especially when they're older than you. I mean, not to be callous.
No, it's
very true. My wife and I, we are blessed that our daughter, who turned 13 in the Jewish tradition, she had a bat mitzvah with 4 grandparents. You don't always get that. That is not common. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Well done. Well done. Peace be with you and also with you. You know that blessing is not shared by all Jewish children. A lot of grandparents don't make it to the bat mitzvah, especially depending on how long you wait.
I never met any of my grandpas. Yeah.
Well, there you go. And that's sad.
Yeah.
You just don't have grandpa memories. And that's sad. So we talk about it with great appreciation about the luck we have, the blessing we have. And yet, because of the way aging goes, we were having this heart-to-heart, and my wife said something like, my parents are healthy and they don't last forever. That's a painful thing to say out loud, but I was proud of her for saying it. And I'm glad she did, because her husband, who wrote a play about hospice, he talks about death and dying all the time, right? I'm like, dying, la 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 la. But I'm glad my significant other is having some honest conversations with herself about the mortality about her elderly parents. They're in their mid-80s. Come on, that's old.
My husband and I both have 2 sets of parents, and we have the same thing where we're like, damn, A, we're so lucky. Half my friends don't. B, God, we're like, oh, I'm trying to start now in my mind so I'm not shocked, but I'm like, no, wait.
Yeah.
No.
You want to try to be in this moment, take photos, take videos, take audio recordings, asking questions. You'll never regret that.
Get them on the podcast.
Exactly, on the podcast, or just an old-fashioned digital recording. Is that now old-fashioned? Yes, the other day I said, let's have an old-fashioned cell phone call, and then I was like, wait, that's not old-fashioned. No, but again, that's part of the meta message of Life Review. Have those conversations, make those visits while you can, because those stories, those amazing stories that I dramatize through the power of musical theater, those stories are sitting in your loved ones, especially of the older generation. They want to be shared. So I encourage all of you, dear listeners, to ask those people. If you want help, there are actually apps now that you can purchase. There are card games. You can get a subscription letter service.
There's no excuse.
No excuse. I mean, and except probably the big scary thing, which is what makes some people uncomfortable with my project, right? Death and dying is frightening. Let's name that. The specter, especially if honest about how scared our own mortality is, then it's definitely scary as hell to think about the mortality of our loved ones. And if we're blessed as parents, God knows the mortality of our own children, nothing scarier.
Totally.
Nothing scarier. So that's why that stuff is all over our fairy tales. It's all over our pop music. It's all over our musical theater and our stage plays. It's definitely all over our fiction, whether it's popular or literary. It's in movies because it's an essential part of the human experience. Now, does that make it comfortable? No, but I tend to think that with the death dying stuff, Bree, it's the kind of conversation that thoughtful adults ought to be having in the same way we need to talk about sex, alcohol, drugs, things that make us a little bit uncomfortable because it's part of the human experience.
It is.
It is. Now, the adversity piece of the COVID time was when I couldn't do the full-length show because of the logistics involved. I didn't want to make a so-called pretend movie, and my coach Alex said, Ben, maybe you can smush it down to a one-man show. I did it. I had to rewrite the thing. I saved the 8 best songs. The rest were not eliminated. They weren't deleted. They're just on the side. And I successfully did this thing approximately a dozen times during the pandemic, performed it for a big fundraiser. I did a professional conference. I did a training. Maybe the coolest one was at the local big nursing home where I had been an intern. Head of activities got my feed, piped it through their cable. So it was in hundreds of rooms throughout multiple buildings. People didn't have to leave their bed to see the show. So that was really cool.
Amazing.
And the fundraiser raised a bunch of money for my project and Denver Hospice because people, surprise, surprise, were ready to pay money to be entertained online, which I was surprised with, but that's been one of the COVID keepers. A lot of people who never, ever wanted to pay for pay-per-view, they got used to paying for $10 here, $5 there, $20 there. And it's been enormous for some small and medium-sized cultural arts institution. Like my local symphony is Baltimore Symphony Orchestra. They have like incredible streaming things.
It's a whole space.
Yeah, and I don't think they did any of this before COVID.
Oh, it's like the whole market emerged, right? This
like
streaming services.
I'm personally not a guy who's gonna spend $5 or $10 for the symphony, but like if it's a really cool program and I missed out and I'm like, oh shoot, maybe I would. I don't know. I know my daughter knows how to plug in the TV and the laptop, so if there's a visual, she knows how to do it. I don't, but I know the right person to call, right? So getting through the adversity for me was getting past the disappointment of the path that I wanted. And then with the help of someone who saw a different path, accepting her help, rewriting the project, and then performing it for that white dot. Let me tell you, not fun at first. Anyone listening.
What the hell am I doing?
Well, I mean, you're great on camera, Bree, and I'm guessing you're better at episode 50 than you were at number 1.
Yeah, the first one I was like, what?
So, did you ever do on-camera work professionally or as an amateur before?
No.
Okay, that surprises me. You're quite good. Good work. I'll give you a virtual high five.
I'm just very obnoxious and
okay. So if you're not easily embarrassed, that helps. I'll tell you, I am a seasoned performer. Okay. So there was a certain amount of tech piece, like, getting the good microphone, but not blocking my face.
What are
and
you
so forth.
talking about? No, you're like, oh yeah, where you don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
So those things were a new set of skills, but to be engaging and talking freely, that was a skill I had already.
Yes.
But I'll tell you, I quickly learned that performing virtually was still performing. As in, I wrote a cabaret show that still to this day runs about 55 minutes, soup to nuts. So that is an introduction, song, narration, song, all the way till I get to song number 8, concluding remarks. Take a bow. That's 55 minutes, and there's no other cast. So I don't like get to go off stage and catch my breath while there's like the dancing hospice nurses or something like I might get in the full version. So even though it's quote just, and use the word just with caution, people, even though it's just a one-man show that's just 55 minutes, it is so exhausting.
I'm
And
sure.
I learned, Bree, that it doesn't matter if you're doing it for a room of 500 or a room of one laptop. In fact, I believe the one laptop may be a harder gig.
Yeah.
It's a harder gig because I need to sing to the best of my ability and bring that performance with no one there.
Right. You don't.
Right? There's
feel-
no like,
There's
because
no.
conversely, I love live audiences.
I'm
Surprise.
sure you're like, hey.
Yeah, no. And even like I've done fringe festivals where structurally you get small rooms, like they literally do rooms of 20, 30, 40 people.
Yeah.
So if you're like a big hit, you've got 40 people.
Yeah.
So in a room like that, you can make eye contact with every single person. And the one who's crying a lot, you can hold it and sing to them while they're weeping. And it's powerful, man. You don't do that with a laptop, right? So it's a whole different beast.
Yeah.
And what I learned is, despite that, you still, when you're done and you sign off, you need to like do the green room thing, sit down. I would text my wife and daughter, be like, I'll see you guys in 15 minutes. I need to veg. So performers learn that in person and over the computer. But the pivot, like this was the COVID, one of the COVID keepers. I sort of learned 2 things, really 3 things during COVID. One, I was all in on piano. That was like my COVID hobby, and I did great.
Fun.
Yeah. 2 was podcasting. I started doing a lot of podcasts, and I got good at it. And it was one thing that I could do when everything was shut down.
Yeah.
I could get on a podcast. And that was a skill. With practice, I got better. Now on my website, I think there's over 30 recordings.
Amazing.
Might be getting close to 40 now. And the last thing was this one-man show or cabaret show. It was made of COVID circumstances. But then once it was available, when the world opened up, here's what I could do. I could bring it to a fringe festival where the window is 1 hour only. And I've done it now at 3 fringes: Asheville Fringe in North Carolina, Charm City Fringe in Baltimore City, and Southeast Theater Conference that was in Baltimore a year ago.
Yeah.
I've done it for synagogue communities. I've done some house shows with the one-man show. I got a grant from Maryland State Arts Council that paid for musicians, and we did orchestration. So we've done lots of cool things with the project. I am still hoping to find that theatrical partner who can stand it up, and happy to keep bringing the one-man show to any audience. So the one-man show wasn't a thing until it had to be a thing. And I'll tell you, as I was going through it and I was busy being mad and disappointed, I didn't want to hear about the pivot. And I think that's one of the best like meta lessons of my little story is when you're trying to help. I mean, you earlier when we were chatting more broadly about helping people in need, I think one of the biggest no-nos I didn't mention is you don't tell them what to do. People in crisis need to figure it out on their own unless they're literally saying, tell me what to do. If someone is so devastated by like a sudden death that they can't dress themselves, I can imagine them saying to like their sister or their best friend, help me pick an outfit. I'm that lost, right? But most,
you don't need to be told what to do. You just
I think so. I don't know. In terms of my adversity, I was struggling in that COVID heartbreak, but I at least had the sense to ask for help. I believe I was in therapy at the time. I
Love
was
it.
finishing up my chaplaincy training, which acts almost as like a group therapy kind of
Yeah.
sounding board, the
Yeah.
5 of you in a group. So I had different circles of support even as I was going through this difficult and disappointing time.
Mm.
And, when we are going through it, though, sometimes we're ready to accept that help and sometimes we're not. I mean, I mentioned my temporary disability incident in college. I
Yeah.
did not access my parents for help, which had a lot to do with my aggressive independence of like college kid. I don't know that that was the best choice. I mean, I made it work, but I probably could have used my parents at that moment. I mean, they knew it was happening, but I basically said, I got this.
I got it. Yeah.
But like 20-year-olds are really stupid, especially young men. We don't have prefrontal cortexes fully formed. But that said, like I have enough time and distance that I can kind of joke about that. However, that old trauma I still live with because the injury was so bad that I still have
Yeah.
chronic
Mm.
back pain. Like I have bone spurs in my lower back. I have arthritis as a 45-year-old. Like it's
Yeah.
pretty nasty the pain I live with in my life and I have to deal with that. But I also try not to like self-flagellate for one stupid moment
Sure.
on an
Sure.
ongoing basis because like you got to forgive yourself. The COVID challenge that shut down my play or temporarily halted its progress, I didn't personalize that because it wasn't my screw up, but it was still a really, really hard time. And I would say in that moment, partially because I was a more evolved man, I was smart enough to access help wherever I could look for it. I mean, we were all so lonely during those times. I think those of us who struggled the most were probably those who didn't reach out. And I think
Yep.
the people who did best during COVID were the ones who joined a bunch of random Zoom groups and did hobbies and did masked hikes and all that stuff
Yeah.
because too much alone is
It's
never good for
it's
people.
not. No.
Yeah.
Nope.
So, the unexpected creative zigzag that came of adversity has now become its own
Thing.
entity. I mean, I have a particular Broadway dream, which I believe is the ensemble cast. Though a friend of mine pointed out to me that a guy named Alex Edelman, who wrote a fabulous one-man show, started in Fringes, then toured it, then he got produced, and then he was on Broadway as a one-man show. Now, I don't think that's exactly my path, but heck, I wouldn't poo-poo it if that unfolded.
Yeah. Who knows?
I would prefer to do my play with an ensemble because I think a lot of the magic in the full length play comes from the dialogue.
Yeah.
The stories happen in conversation.
Yeah.
And also, I think I paint a lot of really sweet vignettes of the loved ones and the plus ones. There's an elderly, super elderly man who's like 104 and his baby sister who he
Mhm.
teases for being so young who's like 95. And there's an old married couple, a couple of cute Jews. They're probably in their mid 70s or 80s
Yeah.
and they're just like very sweet and cute old married couple.
Yeah.
His song sounds like Sinatra. The older African American guy, his
Yeah.
song sounds like gospel. The woman who dies a little bit younger, true to her generation, her power ballad sounds like Carole King. So we
Amazing.
have music signifiers throughout. But every one of these patients, they have a plus one. They have someone who's there with them in the hospice, be it a,
Yeah.
a romantic interest or a sibling or a child
S-
grown, because that's the environment of hospice. No
So
one arrives alone, and if they do, I guess it's a different story, but most of the times people have their close network who are
yeah.
there as well, and I wanted to tell their stories, so we try to bring that together. And maybe that's the meta adversity part of my story, that hospice in a certain way is a particular kind of adversity for people.
Sure.
Hospice workers do their best to reduce the pain and suffering, to minimize the symptoms associated with death and dying,
Yeah.
but you can't make it absolutely pain free and you can't make it absolutely without symptoms. So there's going to be some challenge in going through the dying process physically And we know for sure there's always going to be an adverse adventure in terms of walking the psychological path for the plus ones who love their person and are doing anticipatory grief. Dad, you're still in the bed. I loved you and I know you're dying. And they're already crying even though he's not gone. That's what we call anticipatory grief. And, there can be conflict all around the bed, that comes up. All of this stuff is real and it's raw and it's difficult. I'm not able to do every one of those permutations, but a lot of the drama and much of the comedy has to do with those dyads. So that's why I hope we get to have the full-length show with all of the comedy. But you know what? The one-man show is pretty funny too, and there's music.
Well,
by the way, Bree,
you just teed up what I was going to ask you to do.
You want to do a song?
Well, I was going to say, speaking of one-man show,
please.
I don't know if you had a couple seconds to perform anything.
Yes.
Sing anything for any amount of time. I'm putting you on
sure.
the spot, but I feel like you're not shy, so it's fine.
Oh, I'm ready for you. So we'll do this one.
Okay.
This is the title track.
Okay.
And it's called Life Review. So this song is performed by the main character, the Rabbi Chaplain. You're looking at him. His name is Rabbi David. And you'll experience the rare opportunity to step into the play itself, because I will address you in the second person. I'll be singing to you. And so as you, dear interviewer Bree, and dear listener out there, dear viewer out there, listen to the song and try to put yourself into that bed. Imagine, how would you answer these questions if a chaplain visited you? Oh, wait a second. Let's see, can I get my piano accompaniment? I think I can.
I was like, I didn't know if that was part of it. I was like, is he?
Yes, the knock knock. I was going to do it a cappella, but it sounds a little bit nicer with the track. Come on, Kintisch, you can do it. There it is.
Positive self-talk.
Are you hearing that?
I am.
Hi, I'm the chaplain. Can I visit with you? Who are you? What did you do? Where did you go? Who did you know? Who did you love? Who did you lose when you had a choice? How did you choose? Tell me a story, give a glimmer of your glory, how you got to here and now. I am here to hear you now. We are here to hear you now. Life review, sing of joys and heartbreaks. We can hear your voice even as it fades. Life review, through the triumphs and the sorrows, with more yesterdays than tomorrows. Time to do a little life review. Is it there?
Okay, Broadway, I'm coming to see you one day. Or at
Thank you, Bree.
Okay, and I with your energy and just this whole conversation, I have no doubt that is the tip of the iceberg for like the ride that musical takes you on, right? Of like up, down, the whole range of emotions, right?
Yes.
Such as life.
Yes, I take the listener, the audience member, on a ride. 6 months in a residential hospice, from the opening scene when the main character is on his knees planting daffodils in the dirt in memory of his deceased mother, to spring when it's all over and the daffodils are blooming, a symbol of hope.
Well, I think what you have put together is just fantastic, and I love your energy and your storytelling and your humor. I've just honestly learned too, like, you can't be everybody's everything, right? But you can be a listening ear, a safe presence, a friend who's laughing.
That's right.
Through all
the
of
quiet presence,
right?
The quiet presence is the hardest of all of those things. You don't have to remember the funny Hebrew word tzimtzum.
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 I said it kind of like tzimtzum.
But literally sitting next to your person and breathing, or if that feels awkward, put on their favorite music and listen together. That's a great activity that sidesteps like the Zen woo-woo stuff.
Yeah.
If quiet in a hospital room or a nursing home feels awkward, listen to music. Music is always safe.
Yes.
You can share your favorite music as visitor or honor the visitee by playing their favorite music or take turns. It's a great activity. And then if the mood goes to that quiet place, your music can go there. You can bring down the volume, you can bring down the feel, you can go from up tempo to slow tempo or instrumental and so forth. That's a nice thing that music can do, that it can modulate emotion and feel.
Well, life review. I'm going to put all the links to all the things in the show notes. And this has been awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for allowing my all over the place energy to exist. Both
it's a great energy.
Chaplain,
and it's fun to chase it.
I think we're going to have to do something because also you were on the East Coast for college. You went to Brown. You were in
Yes, we are ever true to Brown. Yes.
Yes. When were you there? What year?
02.5.
Okay. I went to Harvard. I was there 2000 to 2004.
Okay. So if you ever went to a party hosted by my fraternity, I was definitely too friendly to you. And I think I'm sorry, sort of.
No. I didn't. Oh, I didn't. Hey, well, I never went to, I actually did when I was looking at colleges, I went with my parents. We looked at Brown. It was beautiful.
Oh, you did not attend?
Not attend. I went to Harvard.
Oh, but okay. Not everyone can go to Brown. That's fair. That's fair. Listen, I went to school in Cambridge.
Oh, yes. Well,
it's near Boston.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I get so much shit for that. It's so, and then if I say it normal, they're like, well, why are you acting weird? I'm like, I'm not.
You're weird.
I go, I went to Harvard. I went to Harvard. I went to Harvard.
Yes. I love the apologetic Harvard. Just say it.
Yeah.
No, when I did roofing 2 summers, I was like, I go to Brown. They're like, never heard of it. It's like one of the least famous Ivy League schools.
No.
Yeah. Harvard, Yale, and Princeton are famous. What?
Well, Dartmouth and Brown are awesome too,
Oh, they're still great schools. They're just not.
But
they're not as name brand famous. I'm okay with that. Hardest part was getting in. Woo! Anyway, so are we still talking about adversity, or are we now?
Well, there was some adversity there. That's for damn sure.
There was some adversity when I was at Brown.
That was a weird place, but it's okay.
Yeah, very special place. And if you want one last bonus adversity topic before you stop me, being a creative person and having a dream, it's a lot of adventures and adversity.
I would agree.
So I happen to be like relentless and persistent, and those are good and necessary qualities to have a project that goes over 10 years and it's still going.
I'd say you're in it for your consistency is definitely like something that you don't struggle with then if you've been able to continue. Persistent
more than consistent, but when I'm consistent and persistent, that's when the magic really happens.
You're like really assistant. You're just assistant.
Yes, all the stints.
All assistants. You got to be assistant.
Yes, I also probably need an assistant or two. That would be the most impactful thing.
You just don't want to get a cease and desist.
No, or an unnecessary stint.
Or assist while you're getting a cease and desist. Have your assistant handle the cease and desist.
This is going to so many exciting places I did not know. Yeah, it's difficult to have a dream and then people haven't heard of it. Or some people say it's a crazy idea.
Oh, yeah.
Or now, I've heard every reaction in the book because I've been sharing the news of this project for literally over a decade. So no matter what someone says, I say correct.
You're like,
that's right. Like they say that's a terrible idea. I say you're right. Or like that's a crazy idea. 100%. That's an awful idea. Yes, that's why I had to do it. Or that's funny. It is very funny. That's so sad. It is sad, and we laugh too. All the things.
The way you respond to that is actually funny too. Yeah, you're right.
Thank you. Well, because the reason why my co-writer Jason and I had to write the funny opening song, "Everybody Dies in the End," like we needed that to break the ice because we knew there was going to be some discomfort in the room, right? It's a challenging topic.
Yes.
So we worked hard to break said ice, and I think we've done it. It's a funny song.
I love it. I can't wait now that I've seen the trailer, I want to see how we can see this.
Well, where are you based out of, Bree?
I'm in the Bay Area in San Francisco.
All right. So,
Let me know, where do I
you know
go?
how to reach me. We can talk about bringing this little play out to San Francisco. I know at least one other person in San Francisco.
Hey,
So now there's 2 people I know in San
you know
Francisco.
You know too.
And I will wear some flowers in my hair. And thank you for asking. But only if I'm going.
Hey, you have to, I can't. I needed to have, you stole my pen. No. We're
Are
going to
there other? That's the main one, right?
What else about San Fran?
Something about a trolley or macaroni?
Trolley, rice-a-roni, San Francisco treat, all the
All
things.
right. So if I make it to San Francisco, you can take me out for rice-a-roni.
Sounds good.
Like all the locals eat.
You know what? Hopefully I'll take you and your assistant out as well.
Yes.
See, I was trying to bring that back and it didn't land.
No, my assistant should travel with me. When I'm going across the country, I mean, I was talking to someone about bringing me out and I said, and my accompanist, and they're like, wait, you travel with your accompanist? And I'm like, yeah.
You need.
And they pause and they're like, well, could we just find you a local piano player? And I said, it's not the preference.
No.
And then I thought about it and it was like, it's interesting because there is a money question there, right? Like if you're adding another plane ticket and lodging, like
but
it's not a $0 sum.
It's important.
But if you were to bring like a jazz trio, you wouldn't say like, let's take 2 and get like a third guy local to save on a ticket,
like
right?
Bringing 3 out of 4 boys to men. But actually they do that now.
Right. Yes, holograms. They have rival tours. This one, because if there's a group of 5 and they have a fissure, they could have this tour with 2 and this with 3. And you definitely have to go to both if you're a big fan.
For sure. Well, yeah, absolutely.
And splice together the video.
No, so being a creative is very hard. Sorry, I took you off.
It's okay. Being a creative is difficult. There's a term called buoyancy, which is very important in sales and marketing. That's related, if you think of a buoy, that you stay floating. Yeah. So, a lot of the truisms about like, I've done the rejection challenge. Have you ever done the rejection challenge?
Yeah, where you get up and you're like, hi, I'm a dork and I don't care, right?
Right, but you actually either ask for things in real life with real people or you just keep track of how many things you applied for.
Okay.
So during COVID, in 1 year, I got up to like 60 something. And that included trying for podcasts, that included trying for contests and fellowships, and it included like gigs that I tried for. But it was something magical about chasing a number. And then at a certain point, asking didn't feel scary anymore. Exactly. At this point, like the inquiry that I thumbed to you over Instagram, like I've done that to a lot of people, and some people are like, oh, cool, interesting. And some people ignore it. Yeah. And I figure that's a numbers game. At higher levels of sales, when I'm not blind texting podcasts, but being more strategic about, I don't know, trying to get a meeting with a producer or I imagine I might still have to try for 10 or 20 different producers before someone takes my call. You know what I mean? Like
I hear you.
And so that is where the buoyancy is important. If you do one call early in the day and they ignore you and you say, well, F it, no one's picking up my call, you're not going to get anywhere. You have to do the repetitions. Yep. Same way I was able to like just kind of randomly sing for you and sing quite well. It's because I've worked very hard at it for approximately 3 decades. All reps. That's right. Yeah. First voice lessons at age 15. So that's 30 years on and off in the studio. Sales and marketing, I don't have as much repetition. However, I'll tell you, the first time I did essentially a sales call through the computer to someone who's kind of like a family friend, I thought it would be easier. I did not bring my A game. And she kind of nodded and then said, do you have a pitch? And I was like, ooh. You're like, oh, I just thought like, cause you're friends with my wife, you would like hand a big paper check through the screen.
You're like, they're not coming over tomorrow night for dinner. Thanks.
Yeah. No. And what I learned
too, where I've been like,
actually when
podcast, I'm like, yeah, I just told you, I thought. And they're like, oh, yeah.
Right. No. Getting a friend and family booking actually sometimes implies you need to be better prepared because you don't want to look ill prepared for people who are actually going to see you again when you're done.
Yes. we don't ever have to see each other again. If you hate this, you know.
Exactly. Luckily, it went pretty well. But that, let me put it differently. I think in the theater world, there's always been an understanding that it's crazy competitive. In fact, Chorus Line, which I mentioned earlier
Yeah,
in our conversation, is built around the so-called gypsy dancers. They no longer use that term,
yeah,
but the Chorus Line dancers who would famously line up 1,000 people deep to try out to be among the 4 boys, 4 girls.
yeah.
That was the chorus line they were hiring for. So
Yep.
8 spots for 1,000 aspiring dancers. The numbers are still that brutal in New York in
Yeah.
many cases, depending on the show. And perhaps in some cases, the numbers are worse. But people do it knowing full well it's going to be really brutal. And if you're brave enough to do it, work your tail off and always be the best prepared in the room, and also get good at other things so you can pay your rent and keep chasing your dream.
Yeah.
That's good. It's certainly good to be able to teach, but not for everyone.
Hey,
But I'll tell you, whatever your second, third, fourth job is, going to those auditions and not getting it is brutal.
it's tough on your.
It's tough out there. Now, a lot of the work that I'm doing as producer of this show that no one's heard of is less structured. Like, there's no audition set up. Okay, there are playwright festivals that I can
Yeah.
apply to, and I'm going to apply to some of those things, contests and so forth.
Yeah.
A fringe festival, in a sense, is like a call for submissions. But a lot of this stuff kind of happens invisibly, and you meet people or try to meet people, and they, as I said when we first got on the phone, it's easy to ignore people.
Oh, yeah.
It is. And that can be very discouraging. And so one thing that I've learned to help build up buoyancy is to find your easy wins. Find your easy wins.
Mm.
And I was recently on a show where we were talking about creativity and music making. So in a very narrow creative way, that might be your first win is completing a lyric that makes you go, and then a bigger win would be to complete the entire song, like the verses and a chorus. And then
Yep.
a next size, and then the next step up is sharing it with a loved one who's going to be a generous, encouraging ear. And then,
Yep.
of course, the big, famous, big deal share is outside of your home, like a coffee house or an open mic.
Yeah.
But each of those steps are big successes, and be brave, people, and keep doing it, right? If you're not a creative person of that type, but you just want to share the thing, I say the same thing. Share a little bit, be brave about it, share with someone who's ready to hear you and encourage you. I think that's impactful, and you don't have to be a real songwriter or have written a musical to get joy out of writing a poem or writing a song. You don't have to bring it to a coffee house. Just pick up
Yeah.
the pen, start writing, to quote Mr. Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Hey, honestly, we all even just starting to write anything brings out some any kind of creative thing, some child in you, or some just create for the joy of creating. You don't have to end up somewhere, right? Even if
Oh,
you're
that's it. Yes.
the creative
Elementary
outlet.
school teachers learn to emphasize process over product,
Yeah.
especially in art class. We're not trying to do a photorealistic portrait of ourselves,
Yeah.
but look at ourselves and
Yeah.
make a picture.
Just the
Yeah.
process.
The process is the thing, especially when you're learning something new.
Yeah, like you asked earlier, just the progression of episode 1 to now, it's literally as cheesy as it sounds, it's who you become in the process. And I'm literally just a different person halfway through the project than when you started, It's
Absolutely, because at a certain point, you learn to fall away into the computer screen and just have a conversation with the person sitting there in
yeah,
your monitor, laptop, whatever device you're looking
yes,
at, and the microphone sort of disappear.
it does. You get in flow. You're just talking.
That's
Yeah.
right. Once in a while, I say to myself, wait, am I allowed to cuss on this podcast? I heard you cuss, so then I did. Or something. Does this host have a hard stop? In which case, I'm watching the timer. Obviously, you didn't. But that's all good. And we move through it.
One step at a time. Because guess what? Spoiler alert. Everybody dies in the end.
Well done. You quoted my song.
Did I do it right?
You did. No matter No matter feel.
You know?
No matter your name or country or game, it's the same. It's the same. Everybody dies in the end. Sorry to ruin the play, my friend. Love 'em or hate 'em, this cannot bend. Everybody dies in the end.
Scene.
And scene.
Well,
Thank
I
you.
don't know if we can end any more appropriately than that.
Yeah, man.
And Kintisch rhymes with Mintish. Brie
Wilson
like
rhymes with Schmilson.
yes. Brie like the cheese. Wilson Schmilson like the Castaway volleyball. Thank
I
you
miss
so-
that guy.
I
He didn't
know.
say much, but he had a good, quiet presence.
Right?
See?
He should have
We
been a
brought it all
chaplain.
back
He
together.
should have been a chaplain.
Maybe he was. Maybe he
was
had
the
to go and
chaplain.
minister to another castaway. He was like, listen, I've been listening to you go on and on for 3 weeks. It's time for me to go to that other guy in the other raft. He's got some stuff to unburden.
Maui. He went over to Maui and Moana over there. Okay, well, I'm gonna be messaging you and
Looking forward to it.
harassing a fellow Ivy League graduate. I always like to make Ivy League jokes because no one believes. They're like, you went to Harvard? And I'm like, I know, right? They're like, ugh.
Paid that much to get this dumb.
I'm like, I could hit a softball.
Was that your secret?
I was recruited to play softball, but I was like,
Done.
I was a smarty
Sporty.
little. Hey, I had
sporty young woman.
Yeah.
So I'm a typically petite Jewish man, about 5'7", when my hair is poofy. I did play rugby for 3 years, but sometimes when people aren't impressed with my smarts and then figure out that I went to a fancy school and then they go, wait, you went to Brown?
Oh.
And then I point to myself and I say, oh, I was recruited as a linebacker. And then they get more confused and I say, let's just move on.
And you're like, and then
there
I'm
we go.
Chaplain, and then they're like, what?
Yes, no, I say a lot of nonsense, which confuses and delights both things.
I love it. Well, I loved our nonsense. I think it was hopefully helpful and
more delightful than confusion, for sure.
For sure. Episode 52. 52. We're going to sign off and hey.
Pre-written.
There you go.
52 with an exclamation point.
And I'll let you just do one more note to sign us off. Any song note. See, I'm very musical. Any note that you want to sing. Like something like that.
Everybody dies in the end.
That's all. Bye-bye. That was amazing.
Thanks. Are we off? Are we still recording?
Is it
it's
saying,
still recording? It says recording.
It says recording? Okay, let's see. Mine says, if I hit stop, it's not stopping. So when I hit leave, it's probably going to hang up on you. But
all right.
Thank you. I'll do all my stuff and I'll send you a link.
Appreciate it. I enjoyed chatting with you. This was a lot of fun.
Amazing. Amazing. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.